At 37 years old, Cari Farver was the kind of woman who immediately caught your eye. She had a laugh that was absolutely contagious, and a smile that instantly put people at ease. Her friend, Amy Long, would later recall how she could light up any space she entered. You simply couldn't miss her. By trade, she was a computer programmer, fluent in 12 different programming languages, and held an associate's degree from Iowa Western Community College. By 2012, she'd landed her dream job as a programmer analyst at West Corporation in Omaha, commuting a full hour each way from her home in Macedonia, Iowa, a tiny town with a population of only 400. But the center of Cari's world was her son, Maxwell. In 2012, Max was just 14 years old, and Cari was a fixture at all his sports games and band concerts, a truly devoted mother. She had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder in her late 20s, but by 2012, her condition was well managed with medication, and she was thriving. Cari had 3 distinct tattoos: an Aztec sun on her upper back, a yin-yang symbol paired with a Chinese character on her thigh, and another Chinese symbol on her left foot, this one translating to Mother. In the spring of 2012, Dave Cooper was looking for a fresh start. The 35-year-old auto mechanic had recently split from his long-term girlfriend, Amy Flora, the mother of his 2 children. He relocated to Omaha, where he began managing an auto repair shop. After spending years in a committed relationship, he knew exactly what he wanted next, and it wasn't anything serious. To that end, he created a profile on the dating site Plenty of Fish, and was upfront with every woman he met about his intentions. That spring, he began casually seeing someone he connected with on the site. Her name was Shanna Golia, though she went by Liz. She was a 37-year-old single mom of 2 and ran her own house cleaning business. Dave was clear with Liz from the very beginning. He was seeing other people and wasn't looking for a commitment. Liz claimed she was perfectly fine with that arrangement, but deep down, she wanted something permanent. Her behavior became possessive. She was constantly calling and texting Dave, clearly jealous of anyone else who got his attention. Then, in October of 2012, a new customer walked into Dave's auto repair shop, needing some work done on her Ford Explorer. Dave noticed her immediately. He thought she was gorgeous, and there was an instant spark between them. But he was on the clock, representing his company, so he felt it was unprofessional to make a move. Weeks later, he was browsing Plenty of Fish when he stumbled upon her profile. Her name was Cari Farver. He messaged her right away, and their first date was set for October 29, 2012. The 2 met at a restaurant in Omaha, and as Dave later recalled, they were completely captivated by one another. But the date was constantly interrupted by a stream of calls and texts from Liz. Dave made it clear that his attention was on Cari. After dinner, they went back to Dave's apartment, and that's when Liz showed up unannounced at his door, claiming she just needed to grab some things she'd left behind. In the narrow hallway, the 2 women passed each other. It couldn't have been more than 10 seconds, a brief, fleeting encounter. Cari likely thought nothing of it, but for Liz Golia, that momentary glance was enough to seal Cari Farver's fate. Over the next couple of weeks, Cari and Dave kept seeing each other. Since her job was near his apartment, it was easy for them to meet up regularly. At first, neither of them was looking for anything serious, but there was an undeniable potential between them. Dave even found himself rethinking his strict no-commitment rule. With Cari, things just felt different. He later admitted he saw a long-term future with her. Then, on the 9th and 10th of November, Cari's Ford Explorer was vandalized back at her home in Macedonia. Phone records would eventually reveal that Liz had made 6 calls to Cari's home, using *67 to block her number, with no possibility of parole. For Mandy's murder, Jack was given a consecutive 70-year prison sentence, and wanted to avoid the hour-long commute each night. Dave readily agreed, and Cari arranged for her son, Max, to stay with his grandmother, Nancy Rainey, for the rest of the week. Then came the morning of November 13, 2012. At around 7 a.m., Dave kissed Cari goodbye and left for work. She was already awake and on her laptop, seemingly ready to start a busy day at West Corporation, and that was the last time anyone would see Cari Farver alive. Later that morning, around 11 a.m., Dave received a text from Cari's phone. The message was bizarre. She was asking if they should move in together. Dave was completely blindsided. They'd only been dating for 2 weeks, so he politely texted back, turning her down. Almost instantly, another text came through. "Fine, I hate you. I'm dating someone else. I don't ever want to see you again." Dave was baffled by the sudden, dramatic shift in tone. When he got home from work that evening, all of Cari's belongings had vanished from his apartment. Everything was gone. Her clothes, her laptop, her personal items. It was as if she had never even been there. 2 days later, on November 15th, Cari's employer at West Corporation received a text message stating that Cari was quitting her job. The message also strangely recommended a woman named Shanna Golia as her replacement. That very same day, Liz Golia applied for Cari's position. Over the next few days, the messages from Cari's phone escalated rapidly. One read, "My favorite thing to do is stand outside and stare at you." Another said, "I hate you so much that I want to drive in your heart." The messages were eerily specific, describing what Dave was wearing and what he was doing, and even included photos and videos of him. "How's that coffee taste?" a message taunted while he sat in a diner. On November 16th, Nancy Rainey reported her daughter missing to the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office in Council Bluffs, Iowa. She knew in her gut that something was terribly wrong. This just wasn't like Cari. Nancy explained that while Cari had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she was completely stable on her medication. She wasn't the type of person who would just abandon her son, Amy Flora, the mother of his 2 children. He relocated to Omaha, where he began managing an auto repair shop. After spending years in a committed relationship, and had voluntarily disappeared. It was a common occurrence, they claimed. But Nancy insisted something was very wrong. The texts she was receiving from Cari's phone were completely out of character. Cari was always very particular about her punctuation, but these messages were riddled with grammatical errors. They were mean-spirited and hateful, and that simply wasn't Cari. Nancy begged via text just to hear her daughter's voice, but the calls never came. Cari's son, Max, who had just turned 15, tried to verify his mother's identity through Facebook. He sent 3 personal questions that only she would know the answers to. There was no response. He waited for his mother to come and get him, just as the texts had promised she would. She never showed up. Thanksgiving came and went. Then Cari's birthday passed, and then Max's. In December of 2012, Nancy's husband, Dennis, passed away. Cari was a no-show at the funeral. For Nancy, it was absolutely unthinkable that Cari would miss such a major family event. Something was desperately wrong. Then, in January 2013, Dave spotted Cari's Ford Explorer, her job, or her entire life. The police, however, dismissed Nancy's concerns almost immediately. They figured Cari had just stopped taking her medication. He snapped a photo of the license plate and sent it to the Omaha police. When officers searched the car, they found only a single fingerprint on a mint container. The print didn't match Cari, nor did it match anyone in the FBI's national database at the time. Months later, police downloaded the data from Dave's and Liz's phones, but they completely failed to properly analyze it. That crucial evidence just sat there, unexamined, for years. If it had been analyzed right away, the case could have been solved much sooner. But instead, the campaign of harassment was only intensifying. Dave changed his phone number multiple times, but the messages kept coming regardless. He was on the verge of a complete nervous breakdown. He said he could never relax or let his guard down for a second. He was constantly looking over his shoulder. The messages even contained threats against his children, along with specific details about his life that terrified him. At the same time, Liz was also receiving messages, supposedly from Cari. Then, in August of 2013, things escalated dramatically when Lisa's house was torched. Tragically, all 4 of her beloved pets, 2 dogs, a cat, and a snake perished in the blaze. Soon after, emails started pouring in, supposedly from Cari, taking credit for the arson. Around the same time, Dave's gun vanished from his apartment. The harassment continued into January 2014, when a brick crashed through Dave's apartment window while he was inside with another woman, Amy Flora, his ex-girlfriend and the mother of his kids. It turned out Amy was also a target, receiving her own share of threatening messages. By this point, years had gone by, marked by an onslaught of 15,000 emails and somewhere between 25 and 50,000 texts. This campaign of terror was practically a full-time job, with 40 to 50 hours a week dedicated solely to tormenting everyone caught in its web. The stalker created 20 to 30 fake email accounts, all using slight variations of Cari's name. In all, over 60 different email addresses were used in the harassment. With no new leads, the case was officially moved to the cold case files. Cari Farver had now been missing for more than 2 years, and her bank accounts showed absolutely zero activity. There were no transactions, No withdrawals, not a single dime had been touched. The investigation stalled, languishing in a file simply labeled "missing person." With no one actively looking into it, Cari Farver's reputation back in Macedonia was being systematically destroyed in her absence. The tight-knit community was led to believe she was a dangerous stalker who had heartlessly abandoned her own son. This cruel gossip and judgment festered for years. All the while, Nancy kept getting cryptic messages from social media profiles claiming to be her daughter, all with the same chilling instruction: stop looking for her. Holiday after holiday passed with an empty seat at the table, while Nancy desperately clung to hope as months bled into years. Believing they'd ever see Cari again felt nearly impossible. Meanwhile, Dave's life had become a living nightmare. He was trapped in a state of constant fear as the harassment showed no signs of stopping. For reasons that are still not entirely clear, Jack volunteered a confession to the murder of another victim, 9-year-old Penny Davis. He started drinking heavily every night just to cope, and through it all, Liz, whom he'd been seeing on and off, was a constant presence, always appearing to be supportive. She even received harassing messages herself, supposedly from the very woman they all thought was Cari. Then, in the spring of 2015, a new pair of eyes landed on the case: Sergeant Jim Doty and Deputy Ryan Avis of the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office. They volunteered to take another look at the cold case. Cari's disappearance had been a topic of conversation around the office, and for both men, something about it just didn't sit right. Doty and Avis decided to tackle the case from two different angles. Avis would work under the assumption that Cari was alive, while Doty would operate as if she were dead. Right away, Avis keyed in on a critical inconsistency. As he put it, it's not normal for adults to just up and leave and literally spend no money, with no possibility of parole. For Mandy's murder, Jack was given a consecutive 70-year prison sentence. For Nancy, it was the first time an authority figure truly listened to and validated her fears. She, in turn, gave them a crucial piece of evidence: a photo of a $5,000 check, supposedly from Cari to pay for furniture. The check was strangely signed with the name Shanna Golia. This was the first solid piece of evidence linking these two women, who were supposed to be complete strangers. This discovery prompted them to bring in a specialist, Special Deputy Anthony Carver, the digital forensics administrator for the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office. Carver was so dedicated he'd initially volunteered for the job at a salary of just $1 a year before being hired full-time. He would go on to donate an estimated 3,000 hours of his own time to this single case. His commitment was so profound that he even postponed his own brain surgery to keep the investigation moving forward. Carver started by digging into the 2013 phone data dumps. It was a trove of information that had never been properly analyzed. Right off the bat, Tony was able to point out that Liz was posing as Cari, Doty later recalled. But the digital evidence alone didn't tell us what actually happened to Cari, or where to find her. For years, between 2012 and 2015, Liz had been exceptionally skilled at covering her digital tracks. By the time we picked up the case, Liz had learned how to get better and better at hiding her trail, Carver explained. For example, she used a web service that let her schedule emails and texts to be sent at a specific day and time. This way, when she was with Dave, they would both get a message from Cari simultaneously, making her alibi seem perfect. Little did they know, the woman sitting right next to Dave was the one sending every single message. Carver also uncovered that Liz had created over 24 fake email accounts, all using different versions of Cari's name. Then he discovered photos on Liz's phone that were taken about a month before police recovered Cari's vehicle, proving Liz knew where the car was long before law enforcement. Carver developed custom software to sift through the terabytes of data. He meticulously scanned metadata and deleted files, managing to trace an IP address to a place where Liz was actually living. He said it was like finding the proverbial needle in a haystack, but he pulled it off. Thousands of threatening emails were tracked directly to residences where Liz had lived, including the house that later burned to the ground. Cari likely thought nothing of it, but for Liz Golia, that momentary glance was enough to seal Cari Farver's fate. Over the next couple of weeks, on December 4, 2015, Liz brazenly walked into the sheriff's office to file a harassment complaint against Amy Flora. He pointed out, Cari's accounts had been completely untouched for over 2 years. Acting on this, the investigators scheduled an interview with Nancy Rainey in May of 2015, but this time, they knew exactly what to look for. The very next day, Liz shot herself in the thigh at Big Lake Park and claimed Flora had attacked her, using Dave's 9mm Smith & Wesson, which she had conveniently reported stolen just the day before. Police immediately suspected the wound was self-inflicted, but the investigators played along with Lisa's story and asked for her help to catch Flora by getting incriminating evidence. Liz took the bait. Over the next year, from December 2015 through 2016, Liz sent 13 emails, supposedly from Flora, confessing to murdering Cari. The emails laid out details only the killer would know, like how Cari was stabbed 3 or 4 times. Carver was so dedicated, he'd initially volunteered for the job at a salary of just $1 a year before being hired full-time. He would go on to donate an estimated 3,000 hours of his own time to this single case. And crucially, the emails mentioned a yin-yang tattoo on Cari's left hip, a detail that had never been released to the public. It was a matching tattoo Cari had gotten with her ex-husband back in 2009. Only someone who had physically seen Cari's body could have known about it. Investigators traced all 13 of those confession emails directly back to Lisa's devices. They now had the evidence they needed to make an arrest, but they were still missing a body. They didn't have the smoking gun. Then, in 2016, Dave remembered something crucial. He had an old tablet he'd owned since 2012 that Liz had access to when they were together. He turned it over to investigators. In February of 2017, Carver began sifting through thousands of deleted thumbnail images on a micro SD memory card, found inside the tablet. That same card had also been in Lisa's phone right around the time of Cari's disappearance, and that's when he found it. A photo of a deceased person's foot. On the top of the foot was a tattoo of a Chinese character. Nancy confirmed it was the exact same tattoo from Cari's left foot, the symbol for mother. A medical examiner determined the foot belonged to a deceased person. There was also a photo of a deceased person's thigh. It made me realize that Liz Golia killed Cari Farver, and she's taking photos of her body, Carver said. Prosecutors would later call them trophy pictures, taken to memorialize her heinous acts as if they were some kind of accomplishment. Investigators then performed a third search of Cari's vehicle. This time, they stripped the seat fabric completely. Cari's blood was found soaked deep into the passenger seat foam. DNA analysis confirmed the odds of it being anyone else's blood were 1 in 100 billion. They finally had their smoking gun. On December 22, 2016, more than 4 years after Cari's murder, Liz Golia was arrested at her home in Persia, Iowa. She was charged with first-degree murder and second-degree arson. Her bail was set at an astounding $5 million. Just 1 month later, Liz waived her right to a trial by jury. Her defense attorney later explained their strategy, stating, "We waived a jury trial to expedite the proceedings, hoping to try the case before a body was ever discovered. It was a calculated gamble that, as he put it, would backfire spectacularly." The trial kicked off on May 10, 2017, and ran for 10 days. For 3 days, Anthony Carver took the stand to detail the digital forensics, followed by Dave Cooper, who read just a fraction of the staggering 12,000 emails he had received. Nancy Rainey testified, identifying her daughter through her tattoos and confirming the harassing messages. The defense, in turn, called no witnesses, resting their entire case on the lack of a body, a weapon, or any eyewitnesses. But the prosecution's case was overwhelming. She spent years tormenting many lives. Prosecutor Brenda Beadle declared, spinning a web of deception to keep Cari alive, just so she wouldn't get caught. That the attack happened in her own vehicle, that her body was wrapped up and burned, and that it had been disposed of in trash bags, and drop off the face of the earth. He continued, very sadly, she was murdered. The court finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant intentionally killed Cari Farver with deliberate and premeditated malice. Guilty on both counts, first-degree murder and second-degree arson. The courtroom exploded with cheers and applause as an emotional Nancy Rainey finally broke down in tears. "She's got her name back," Nancy said through her tears. "It's not tarnished. She loved life. I just wish she could have had more of it." Liz Golia received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole, with an additional 18 to 20 years for the arson charge. To this day, Cari's body has never been recovered. Her son, Maxwell, graduated from Iowa State University in 2021. With a degree in software engineering. He now works as an application developer, a fitting tribute that honors his mother's own legacy in technology. In May of 2019, the 3 lead investigators established the Cari Farver Memorial Scholarship Fund, created to support information technology students at Iowa Western Community College by providing $2,000 annual scholarships. For nearly 4 long years, The world was led to believe that Cari Farver was a dangerous stalker. The truth was the exact opposite. Now, her name has been cleared, and her true legacy is the one that lives on.